Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast. This is Lindsay Velasina at Scrum.org. Just wanted to give a little bit of a recap for this episode. This is a part 2 of an episode focused on Strobbo, an HR software company. And in the last episode, Leslie Morse from Scrum.org interviewed Bert Neels, Michael Voorhaen, and Steven Deneir about a transformation story. And Strobbo adopted Scrum to help accelerate their go-to-market. They also created a learning culture, fostered lots of transparency, and they built some great trust-based leadership. It is a really great story, so please go back and listen to the first episode if you haven't listened to that one already. This episode will kind of recap everything, and Leslie asks some thought-provoking questions to Steven, Michael, and Bert. And they also share some really great tips for your Scrum teams and really good leadership advice. So we hope you enjoy this episode.
There's two things that I'm exceptionally curious about, and then we'll get into a little bit of lightning round wrap-up questions. One of them, Bert, directly involves you around this idea that sort of, I'll call it as agile purists or as Scrum purists, we would say we never advocate for the person holding Scrum Master accountabilities to have positional authority within the organization or have HR type relationships with the people on the Scrum teams. As a co-founder, that was something that y'all chose not to do. You were holding those Scrum Master accountabilities for those teams. And given the story that we're hearing about today and what's outlined in the paper, like it worked for y'all. So what was the motivation for that? And was there anything specific done to alleviate a lot of those risks that go into what often happens if Scrum Master accountabilities are intermingled with some of those other organizational elements?
Yeah. So I understand the people who are skeptical about it. But I think it has a really lot to do with the trust that I built along the way. What I did to prevent mingling the both of them was actually, really indicating, sometimes that when someone felt like I was going in the wrong direction, that they should really stop me. I also had a few people within the team, including Michael, for example, who really had the courage to stop me. I think that's, of course, important if you're the only strong figure in the team, and no one has the guts to stop you when you need to, then you have a big issue. But I think, Michael, you had to stop me quite a few times in the beginning. But after that, of course, the team picks it up and they know how to stop me. The Elmo, by the way, is a great way to do it. To stop when we need. We still use it in every meeting. Just showing that it's acceptable to do it, and just proving that it's acceptable. They believe it when they see it, I guess.
Yeah. And it shows a great integrity within you to enable that to happen as well. Anything else to add on that?
No. I just wanted to admit that it hurts sometimes. If you're stopped and you think you know that you're the right call, but just let it go.
Yeah, we all think we're the smartest person in the room sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it's easy to become attached to the ideas and opinions we have. I'm one of those people. The the other thing that I was really curious about was the experiment you did around and allowing the teams to sort of restructure themselves on their own. I think a lot of organizations think like, yeah, that's something that can happen in theory, but it wouldn't work here. But you all allowed for a level of experimentation around that. So what set up that experiment? What were the guidelines that you put around the teams, and like what worked, what didn't in that portion of the journey?
Yeah, so that's one I still remember quite vividly. Had a lot of preparation together with Steven. We really prepared a full day. But it was perfectly time boxed and everything. Starting from the introduction, forming the teams, setting up the boundaries together, forming the teams, and then even at the end, virtually burning the old team names, and everything was prepared. Yeah, and then we started. And then already at the boundaries, you noticed, yeah, there's some people already pushing towards things that I don't like, but yeah, I just let it go. And I can still remember by noon we ended up at like totally being stuck in not being able to fulfill the boundaries for the teams. I can remember that's the point where I called Steven together with Michael because we were like, yeah, this is going totally the wrong direction. We need to stop. But Steven convinced us to just continue and let it play out. And that's actually what we did. We tried to turn the mood like, yeah, okay, we're stuck here. This is what we are going to try to do for the next 2 or 3 sprints. And we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I must admit that were 2 or 3 painful sprints. I think 2. After that, the team actually solved it themselves. It was quite clear we were having some issues with seniority and senior people wanting to be together and not wanting to split to meet the constraints. But yeah, eventually, yeah, the pain was high enough for the team as well. So yeah.
I think it was one of the situations that probably tested us the most to just keep faith and yeah, put it to the team and trust that it would work out in the end. But there was a very big. I think at some point we were really thinking like we need to pull back. I'm actually very glad that Steven convinced us not to do it because it was a very strong learning moment for the team, and also for Bert and me, because I think afterwards we were, I think, more willing to accept a little bit of risk if we did an experiment like that and trust the team that it would work out, even if the initial thing was not what we had in mind.
I want to add to that, the constraints are very important if you do that. So you have to think very careful about them, then stick to it. And if the teams do want to deviate, it becomes their problem and you have to keep them accountable, which I'm very proud you guys did. And you see after a few sprints what happens. It works out because they feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
It is really hard to not just want to ask a dozen more questions on this alone and other things that I'm curious about, because just that experiment and how the restructuring went, like that could be a whole podcast episode and a whole paper by itself, because I think there's so much important learning in those processes, and the leadership courage needed to allow for that to happen is, I think, really important for people to just think about and focus on. So thank you for giving us kind of an abbreviated version of that. And there are lots of just other questions I'd love to ask, but we will wrap up. So curious, given sort of like where you all are now, what would you say is on the horizon next in terms of continuous improvement for Strobbo?
You can go now, Michael. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking. There's such a big list. Well, I think for one, I think we've come a very long way. We are much more focused on working on smaller, like bite-sized goals where we can really align one or more teams to really focus on delivering value. We're still very much output focused there. So I think there's a lot of work still to be done, aligning more with the business and really driving it to have a business impact. So I think that's one of the things that's going to happen. We're also still we also still have a lot of plans for international growth. So having starting to work on those tools, they will help us a lot. And I think from a point of view, I think I think that a lot of the improvements that I have now in mind, um, I'm really not actively working on them or pushing them to the teams because there's so much moving from the teams themselves. We do backlog refinements and they're not running that great at the moment. So the team just starts like picking it up like, okay, we need to do something with that. Or we want to do more customer contact. So how can we tackle that? And it's coming organically from the teams, and the things that are coming really add value. So there's a lot of stuff that I can answer, but I think the nicest answer is that probably Bert and me don't know because there's a lot of creative ideas just starting to bubble up, and we are actually equally excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple of months, years. So yeah, so for me, that's I think that's a little bit of the takeaway of the situation where we are now, and which is different from where we started at.
I love that. I love that. Bert, what would you add?
It's hard to add something. No, we'll just see where we end. I think we are ready to grow even further, and the entrepreneurial mind is still there. So something draws me towards growing. I think, we're now in a fully. So now, we all come to the office to do the ceremonies. I think if we go further, we will have to revise that again. Because only from the practical side, we want to involve more customers, and I think we should maybe go in that direction a bit to do it remote again. That would be a big one for me. But still, I think we're just ready to grow. So let's grow.
That's cool. When we think about empiricism, we often think of like data-driven decision-making and things. Are there specific business measures or other success indicators that you have looked at and that you are continuing to look at in order to see if you're like on track and moving in the direction you want to move?
Yeah, that's always a hard one.
Maybe
for me,
Bert, the one on installed user base.
Yeah. Of course, in the installed user base, we're monitoring a lot. But as Michael said, we're monitoring a lot of output at this point. We want to shift towards outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I think output is a lot better than nothing, but still, we want to shift towards outcome. And other measures that are very important for me are, of course, the team satisfaction. Even though it's not that easy to measure. But you see that we're still, everyone who was here last year is still here. That's an important thing, of course. The team atmosphere is very important for me. But we also need to shift a little bit more towards concrete data. And in that point, I think going to outcome measurement, really measuring how much time our users gain by using our product is the next step.
That's cool. And it sounds like you've got an environment in place where putting a challenge like that in front of the teams is something that they'll be able to creatively innovate towards, versus waiting for y'all to bring them the solution for how to do that and serve it up on a platter, which is really awesome. So two last things. Or I guess one last thing before some final thoughts. So this has been sort of the story about, right, trust-based leadership, shifting trust into the team so they can be more self-managing. Other organizations that are desiring for that same shift, what are a couple tips or tricks or recommendations that you have for them?
Yeah, I think the most important one is that really go to a learning culture by experimenting. And there's a side that's, in my opinion, forgotten a lot of times. When you experiment and it's not good, then you should be able to revert to the previous situation. I think that's a big thing that everyone was, we're trying a lot, but what if it doesn't work? They were the point where we really said, if it doesn't work, we go back. And the point where we really did that, that's the point where people were like, okay, we can try here. We are allowed to fail and also see failing as learning, of course. That's a big mind shift. And you win some, you learn some. It's a whole different thing. Then you win some and you lose some, of course. Those are the most important takeaways from my side.
Michael, what about yours?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we had was that we had a very young team with a lot of people just coming fresh out of school who were very motivated but still had a lot to learn. And I think as leadership, you need to look at it. You need them to give the opportunities to kind of self-organize, but and I think it kind of relates to the thing that Steven was saying about the constraints. It's different constraints, but you should be able to kind of give your teams challenges that they can handle. Maybe a little bit further than what they are able to handle at that point in time, so they can still fail or overcome the challenge. I think if you're working with teams as from a leadership point of view, you really need to look at understanding what your teams are capable of, understanding the current situation, and then working together with them on those kinds of challenges. And if you can do that, you can build the trust again. You build trust with the team, but you also build the trust of the team, and then it starts compounding after a while. The more trust they have, the more willing that they are able to just do a real experiment or take a bigger challenge. So for me, that was a very big learning that I took away from that, and that I initially, I have to admit, I forgot that. It was something that I really had to learn, like, what can we do now without really pushing the team too far and just being able to build on top of that.
Yeah, the belief they can. I think of at least it's popular in the United States, the Ted Lasso show, right? And believe was sort of the motto that rallied them. And that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying there, Michael.
Yeah, I think it's actually a very good thing. I think you really need to believe that your team can do it. But on the other hand, it's your job to create the environment where they can do it.
Yeah.
And where those two things start working in tandem, then after a while you see it really catching on speed, and that's the moment that you're like, oh wow, this is amazing, this is great. So
that is awesome.
Guys, I might want to add practice patience as managers, because it will be tough. Be patient. It pays off in the end.
Yeah.
It's true, Steven. I think both Bert and me are very action-driven people who really want to start tackling problems, and sometimes we also had to okay, wait, but we can't do everything at once, and so patience is indeed something very important there as well.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. This is your last chance. Anything important you feel like you need to share? Final thoughts before we close out today?
Maybe one thing from my point of view, if I look back at my journey as product owner, so if anybody would be listening who is a developer who is thinking about that thing, it is worth the step for me, and it was worth the step for me. I was for myself very amazed that I'm not really thinking about going back to development, because I'm so enthusiastic by doing the work that I'm doing now, being able to work on a product, but with the teams together, that it gives me so much energy. And to be honest, it's really not what I thought that it would be at the beginning. It's much better if you do it in the way that we do it with the empowered teams. Being a product owner can actually be fun. It's not always fun, but it can be really fun at a lot of the time.
I love it. I love it. Any other closing thoughts, guys?
I had some time to think now, so maybe I think of as a developer, maybe try to step out of your normal go-to for learnings, and maybe go a bit broader, like the Scrum trainings. I also did the training for the product owner, management trainings. All those things, I think they add a lot to you as a developer as well, and as a team member, actually.
Yeah, it's like somebody from the kitchen doing a stint in the front of the house of the restaurant to build that greater shared understanding of how it all works together to create that guest experience. So I think that's a fantastic recommendation. I really do. All right, Steven, going once, twice. Final thoughts.
It's okay. I'm very happy that the guys at Strobbo have progressed so much. Happy client, happy Steve.
Yeah. And thank you, Steven, for bringing this story into the Scrum.org family and allowing us to showcase it. Thanks to the three of you for being with me again today, Bert, Michael, and Steven. We really appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into this episode of the Scrum.org Community Podcast. We appreciate you. Ta-da!